Good morning. Buenos dias. My name is Stephanie Elizalde, and I get to serve as the superintendent for the Dallas Independent School District. I'm joined today, as you can see, by many colleagues, friends, representatives from at least 10 school districts in North Texas, and I want to welcome each of you to Dallas ISD. This coalition represents school districts from the north and south part of our region, big and small, urban, suburban, and rural school districts. Collectively, our districts represent and serve nearly 500,000 students, more than 30,000 teachers, and more than 70,000 team members that are in support of serving our students. And all of us cover more than 1,000 square miles. Similar news conferences are being held in other parts of the state at the same time for the purposes of drawing attention to our efforts, and we believe close to 60 districts are participating. So welcome. We are here today to declare an emergency. Mayday is used primarily by pilots and sailors to raise an alarm and to request immediate rescue. So let me make this official. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Texas public schools are in need of immediate rescue. We are declaring an emergency because the budget currently being negotiated by state lawmakers leaves Texas public schools $7 billion short from what is needed just to cover inflation. This is a little like realizing your plane is about to run out of fuel before you land. If you can't get additional fuel, you have to make the plane lighter. That means we will all collectively have to get $7 billion lighter. 85% of our budget is in people, and most of them are teachers. If we're not made whole for inflation, then we're not able to make our teachers and the support staff, all of our valued team members, whole just to keep the rate of inflation flat. Passing a budget with a $7 billion hole for public schools makes giving teachers and all support staff, from custodians to counselors, a fair raise absolutely impossible. Texas public school teachers and their colleagues are watching what happens here, and they've told state leaders that they need a raise. Now state lawmakers need to hear from you. We need anyone who supports public schools to call and email their state legislators and tell them that Texas public schools are in need of immediate rescue. We have a link that will be shared to make it easy for parents, teachers, and team members to contact their lawmakers. We also have created a link to where you can access this at fundtexasschools.com, which should be live. Today you're going to hear from 2 trustees, one from Richardson ISD and Plano ISD, a PTA leader from Frisco, the head of the economic development for the city of Plano, and last but certainly not least, a terrific teacher from Cedar Hill ISD. So first, let me welcome and introduce President of the Richardson ISD Board of Trustees, Regina Harris. President Harris.
Hello, my name is Regina Harris. I am the president of Richardson ISD School Board. Mayday, Mayday. Today, I stand before you as a passionate advocate for fully funding Texas public schools. Education is the foundation upon which the success of any society is built. It is the key to unlocking the potential of every individual and creating a brighter future for our great state of Texas. However, despite the essential role that education plays in our society, Texas public schools remain underfunded. We must take action now to ensure that our children receive quality education that they deserve. This is a crucial step towards ensuring that every child in our state has access to the tools and resources they need to succeed. Fully funding Texas public schools will have a positive impact on our entire state. It will create new opportunities for students to excel academically, and it will prepare them for success in the workforce. It will also attract new businesses and industries to Texas, which will create more jobs and stimulate economic Texas. But let's be clear, fully funding our public schools is an easy task. It will require all of us to come together and work towards a common goal. We must demand that our lawmakers prioritize education and provide the necessary funding to ensure that our schools are adequately resourced. Next month, school boards throughout the state will be approving their budgets for the following year. And the major part of our budget in school staff is particular teachers. Given the challenges in the teaching profession, a significant pay increase is just a part of what we can do to show our teachers we value their work. Without more funding, we cannot give a raise that will come anywhere close to keeping up with inflation, and they deserve that. At least all of our employees do. So I urge you to join me in advocating for fully funded Texas public schools. Contact your representatives and insist that they use the record budget surplus to help school districts give a meaningful pay and our staff. Spread and family, and together we can make a difference and provide our children with the education that they deserve. The legislature needs to fully fund Texas public schools, and I hope that you will join us in this critical effort. Our children are the future of our great state, and we owe it to them to give them the best possible start in life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our next speaker is Nancy Humphrey, our Vice President of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Regina. All right, I'm Nancy Humphrey. I'm Board Vice President of Plano ISD Board of Trustees. This is my 13th year serving my community in this role, not necessarily that office, but on the board. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Elizalde for hosting us today. Excuse me. And thank you to all who are here in attendance to address the important issue of adequately funding public education as we enter the final crucial weeks of this legislative session. I look at, I think, 10 different school districts here from North Texas. And as Dr. Elizalde said, this is going on statewide. For us in Plano ISD, this is an SOS moment. Support our schools. Over the years, there's been a growing concern about the underfunding of public schools in Texas. Despite being one of the largest and wealthiest states in the country, Texas has consistently ranked near the bottom in per pupil spending on education. Our schools are the backbone of our community, and they play a crucial role in preparing our children for the future. However, the state of Texas has not kept up with its school allotment, and it doesn't coincide with the compounded inflation that we've experienced in the last 4 years. As difficult as the Texas school finance system is to understand, and I promise you it's very complex, and I think that might be intentional, everyone needs to know that school districts do not receive more funding when property values increase. That seems intuitive, but it's not. We're allotted a certain amount of money per student regardless of our property values. And the amount of money allocated per student has not changed since 2019. That was 4 years ago. Since then, we have all felt the impacts of inflation on our household budgets, and the school districts are no different. This means that schools are being forced to do more with less. And we've been doing that. We wear a lot of Band-Aids. Additionally, in Plano ISD, recapture payments to the state have increased more than 50% since 2019, which means we are sending more and more of our local tax dollars back to the state, making it more challenging to provide the resources that students need and afford the compensation that our teachers deserve. And I'll just say our recapture payment is going to be about $250 million this coming year. We're asking our legislators, those are local tax dollars, we are asking our legislators in Austin to provide school districts with additional funding at least to make up for the inflation since 2019. Without action by lawmakers this legislative session, districts in our area who are running a deficit budget, ours included, will have some tough choices to make. And we understand that the legislators must be careful not to overspend or commit ongoing spending using the state surplus funds, and we appreciate the funding that they have provided in the proposed legislation so far. However, there is a teacher shortage, along with other school employee shortages, which are likely to increase if school districts can't provide meaningful pay increases to keep up with inflation. Additionally, we continue to face rising costs that are beyond our control, such as the cost of fuel for our school buses, health insurance, utilities, property casualty insurance, custodial, all of those other fixed costs that we must maintain that are still tied to inflationary factors. Simply put, we want to provide ongoing and meaningful pay raises for our teachers and other school staff and pay the bills. Our legislators need to know that the current legislation does not allow most school districts to do both. To keep up just with inflation, our basic allotment must increase by nearly $1,000 across the board, and we are not there yet. Basic allotment is the amount per pupil that school districts are funded. So today, we call on parents, teachers, business leaders, and community members to contact the legislators and, one, thank them for the hard work that they have done so far, and two, let them know they cannot be finished yet. School districts need additional funding to be made whole for the inflation impact over the last 4 years and going forward. So our students deserve the very best we can give them. We need to invest in their future, in our future, by investing in education. And ultimately, that will help the robust Texas economy that we currently have. Thanks so much for letting us be here and talk. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Melinda Anderson, Texas PTA Vice President of Programs and Resources. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Melinda Anderson. I'm the proud parent. I am a proud parent, and I am a PTA leader in Frisco ISD and the VP of Programs and Resources for Texas PTA, both completely volunteer roles, by the way. I not only stand here today to represent my own public school educated children, but to represent the other 5.4 million pre-K through 12th grade students across the great state of Texas that we call home. So I am sounding the distress alarm. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Every parent sees their child dreaming of what they want to be when they grow up. They want to be a doctor, a lawyer. They want to be a dancer or an artist. They want to be firemen or women or police officers. They want to be president of the United States. They dream so big, and then we let them down. We let them down because we lack the tools and resources each of them deserves. But here's the good news. We can change that. Why are we here? We are here because our children, our community, and our future need us. As parents, we have the opportunity to let our voices be heard, to let our voices be heard for our teachers and our students, to let our voices be heard for public schools, to let our voices be heard so our next generation get the tools and the resources they deserve through our Texas public school system. What do we need to do? As parents, we need to take a moment and share with our lawmakers why Texas public schools should be fully funded. It takes 15 seconds to support your teachers and their students. We only have one more month to show our teachers and their students that we see them and that we are standing in their corner. As for our elected officials, we thank you for the work you have done and what you have already done in allocating dollars for our schools. But because of inflation, it's not enough. We need a commitment from you. We need a commitment from you to make educators, their students, parents, and the broader community a priority. Let Texas be the example to show other states that public education is the great equalizer. Let's give all kids equal educational opportunities, no matter what their race, ethnic background, religion, whether they're rich or poor, all children. Let's give our children the opportunity to dream big. Let's make their dreams a reality and give them the opportunity to become a doctor, an artist, or even the next president. Please fully fund Texas public schools because it's the right path forward for our children. I am a proud supporter of the Texas legislation on fully funding public schools. Please join me. Thank you. Now it is my great honor to welcome Doug McDonald. He is the Director of Economic Development for the City of Plano.
Good morning. I'm Doug McDonald. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the City of Plano, Texas. My mother was a teacher for 25 years before retiring right before the pandemic. She taught at Garland ISD and had the honor of being recognized as Teacher of the Year for the district. But as her youngest son who worries about her, I'm grateful she retired before COVID, because watching these educators during the pandemic try and keep our future workforce educated was an unsurmountable task and an unbelievable stress that they had to put on. As a representative of one of the state's most successful economic development programs, I can tell you the number one asset that recruits global companies to the state of Texas is our schools. And the number one challenge facing all of our companies today is workforce. And it's not a simple fix. We have to go deep into our bench to continue building a pipeline of talent, and that starts with our schools. And our future workforce is in our schools today, but that workforce has been through a lot these past few years. The pandemic wasn't easy on anyone, but especially difficult on our youngest learners. As if their jobs weren't difficult enough already, our teachers are faced with catching up those students on their studies. Some students bounce back quickly, others are still behind. In addition, in pockets of poverty, there has been high mobility among families, meaning that they have moved from place to place, and that movement and lack of stability only adds to the challenges that their children face. So when we talk about the team of individuals working with our schools, we need to recognize the difficult challenge they all have at this moment in time. As Texans, we need to do all we can to help keep up with the rising cost of inflation. When we don't recognize these challenges and address them, our educators and our support staff will seek other employment to better provide for their families. And right now, we cannot afford to let that happen, and that's why I'm here today. We want Texas to continue to be the state that appeals to businesses and promotes economic growth. We believe in our teachers, our counselors, librarians, principals, nurses, custodians, food service staff, 7th grade reading teachers like my mother, and many others who work day in and day out to help our future workforce be prepared for the world of tomorrow. One that I hope that Texas will continue to be the economic engine that it is today. On behalf of the City of Plano, thank you so much to all the educators who are here today, to our trustees who volunteer their time on leadership and guidance, and we ask everyone to join us in contacting the legislator to urge them to support our public schools. We appreciate all the hard work our legislators have done today and know they have constraints. We also know that our public schools are the foundation of our workforce today and in the future, and that shortchanging schools now will not bode well for the state's future economic stability and growth. Our students have made some progress since the pandemic, and we desperately want that to continue. So investing in our public schools will help all Texans. thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you to everyone here behind me, and it's a great honor to be here, and I appreciate the effort that this group has been making. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Irene Cardoso, and I'm a teacher at Cedar Hill ISD's Collegiate Academy and High School. Today, I am proud to represent the teachers in North Texas and this great state as a whole. The men and women in our classrooms, the boots on the ground, the heroes of education, the role models to our students, the ones who inspire our children to dream, the ones who inspire our children to find their passion. Right now, tens of thousands of teachers are working in classrooms in North Texas. Not only do they bring their lesson plans to school, but they bring their passion to helping their students achieve. We have students from our schools who will be attending some of the finest colleges and universities in the state and in the country. We have others who are struggling because of home situations that many of us can never imagine. Public schools serve some of the most vulnerable populations in the state, our students with disabilities and special needs. We are all aware that mental health crises are also on the rise. And there are so many students that are in between, the ones who will hold any number of jobs that will help each of us through life. Dental hygienists, construction managers, physical therapists, bank tellers, electricians. These are future Texas leaders, the students that will one day discover medical breakthroughs, those that will write code, that will change the tech industry and thrust Texas into the future. Essentially, they are the backbone of this state and of this country. Today, teachers are serving every one of these students, most from different backgrounds with different learning styles, different academic abilities, and different knowledge base, doing the very best they can. We are professionals. We show up because if we don't, who will? We are the most qualified and the most prepared. Work is important, and the very least that can be done is to pay us well. Even better, teachers can be supported by allowing them to continue the work that they have committed to doing, by paying a salary that at least keeps up with inflation. Teachers should not have to work second jobs to make ends meet. Every time an experienced teacher leaves the profession, schools are faced with finding and training up another. We love our first-year teachers, but it takes time for educators to learn their craft. Future teachers are turning away from their passion and their calling because they just can't afford to be educators. That's why it's so important to send a message to our experienced veteran teachers, the ones who at this time of year are facing to us. And teachers aren't the only ones. Our nurses, our counselors, our librarians, they are important to us. Everyone working in our schools needs that support. Every person in the education profession needs your support. At some point this summer, educators across the state will learn what their salary will be for the next school year. They will learn that it is not enough, and they will be faced with making an impossible decision. Can I make it one more year as a teacher? Do I have enough to pay my bills? Will I have to jump to an easier job to make ends meet? How far can I make my check stretch? What corners will I have to cut to make this work? The Texas legislature has more than $30 billion in surplus funds. Our students, Texas students, deserve more than a $90 increase. Texas is about $4,000 behind the national average. That is just not the Texas way. We are in the bottom quartile. If Texas legislators choose not to make a substantial investment in the future of Texas' labor force, its future labor force, its students, that's just bad business. So Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I am asking all parents, teachers, staff members, and supporters of public schools to contact their lawmakers today and ask them to help our schools meet the rising cost of inflation. Make sure that every vote is a vote for your local school district. Get out there and vote in your local bond elections. Get out there and vote in your school board elections. It only takes a few moments to do so, and it is the very least that we can do. Thank you.
The legislature has bills moving that would increase teacher pay by $2,000 in large districts and $6,000 in small districts. What is the specific figure y'all are asking for raises and for the basic allotment? Well, I'll jump in. I'm the numbers girl. You want the microphone? Hey, Talia, good question. For inflation, it would need to go up $1,000. I think I mentioned that in what I said. It's currently at 6160. That's $6,160. They're talking about raising it $90 in the first year of the biennium, and then another $50. So it'll go. Just right now, for inflation, we need about $7,000 per student ADA, average daily attendance, and 7,100 has been tossed around. But inflation has been a very difficult thing to manage, and with a limited workforce and teachers, available teachers, we have to be able to attract them with, there's a competitive labor market out there. We have to be able to attract them with a good salary.
As a follow-up to that, with your own constituency, my understanding is that many homeowners, many families, parents in Collin County, in Plano, are asking for a property tax relief. They're tired of paying taxes. So if they're tired of paying taxes, the ripple effect of how that comes back to your schools, to all of these schools, what do you tell your own constituents about this Mayday if they're saying, I need a Mayday too, I don't want to pay any more taxes?
I totally agree with that. I'm one of those taxpayers. My house value went up 25%. Thank goodness there's a 10% cap right now. But what we know is when the property taxes go up, the schools aren't funded any better. We still get that per pupil allotment. The House and the Senate are both considering different measures for reducing property taxes. I think the Senate is looking at $16 billion reduction, and they're doing that through the homestead exemption. And the House is looking at a different way to go about it, reduction in the maximum compressed tax rate, as well as a reduction from that 10% value creep down to 5%. And I will say that the 5% value creep will hurt us with our interest and sinking fund, and school districts who are trying to go out for bond are going to end up having to pay higher interest rates, or they won't even be able to if they're already at their maximum. They can't go out for bond. So capping value growth at 5% is a hardship for public ed as far as interest and sinking fund rate goes, because it affects all properties, including commercial, not just the homestead exemption.
Do you think that is a priority for your parents, for your families in your community? They've got to pick one or the other, and it sounds to me as if they're picking property tax relief versus education funding.
Well, I think that's where the legislature is right now, as far as picking property tax relief. And they, the Senate in Senate Bill 2 didn't even have an increase to the basic allotment. Thank goodness the House is considering that in their House bill for the budget. But as you've been hearing it from everyone, that's still not enough to cover us for inflation. I do believe in property tax relief, and we do need that. We, as taxpayers, we all need help there. But we also have a priority to fund our public schools because this is the future of our workforce. We are the 9th largest economy in the world, and if we are not going to invest in future education to fund the workforce, we will cease to be that level of an economy.
Hay más de 43,000 educadores que dejaron el trabajo, los maestros, el último año, que representa el 13% de los educadores en todo el estado de Texas. La gran pregunta es, ¿los políticos se han olvidado de la educación? Y es por eso que estamos hoy reunidos para hacerles un llamado.
Hay diferentes razones por cual los maestros han escogido diferentes profesiones, pero la política sí es uno que les duele. Es algo cuando una persona quiere ser educador, quiere servir a los niños y la política está en la clase en vez de en la política fuera de la escuela. Y últimamente también hemos tenido, para vivir nos cuesta a todos más, pero no tenemos más dinero para darlos a los maestros o a los otros que trabajan en la escuela. Hemos tenido buscar diferentes maneras y muchos de los distritos que están aquí con nosotros tienen lugares donde no tenemos un maestro, tenemos un sustituto porque ahorita no hay suficiente maestro. Oh, okay, sure. So the question originally was with the large, almost 13% of teachers that have left the profession in the last year, is it because of politics? And so it's both. Politics that have entered into the classroom, as well as, and attacks, frankly, it's beyond just politics in the classroom, it's the attacks that our teachers and our support staff have to endure when they're trying to do the creation of new leaders in our communities. And then lastly, of course, with inflation rising and us not being able to keep up with inflation, it is virtually trying to get blood out of a turnip. I mean, if there are no dollars, how do we provide them? This group, all of us up here, we all want to give the raise. It has absolutely nothing to do with will. It has everything to do with the ability to do so.
Good morning, Damon Fernandez from WFAA. We know many of the school districts have tried to found unique ways to be creative when it comes to teacher retention and dealing with shortages. We also know that school districts have been extra burdened with new security measures from the state. Can you give us any more examples of how, if the budget does not change for the school districts, what extra challenges or tough decisions or creative choices you may have to make? Just some of the realities that you guys have been facing, or some realities that our public may not know about.
Yeah, and I'd invite my fellow superintendents to please jump in. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to the analogy of the plane. I mean, we're all flying. We're holding public school every single day. As our outstanding teacher mentioned earlier today, right now as we're standing here, kids are learning in classrooms. Teachers are teaching. Our bus drivers are driving buses. We're preparing meals and so on and so on. And yet, we are all faced right now with having to make reductions in our staffing. So something has to give, whether that is student programs, whether that's additional stipends that we pay as much as possible for teachers who go over and above, which all of them do, and yet we can't afford to pay all of them over and above, our nurses, our librarians, and so on. So positions, remember, 85% of almost each of our school districts up here, it's in people. It's not in things. So sometimes people think, well, reduce the number of copies you make. No, that's not going to make a difference. It's in people, and none of us want to be in that situation, but the fact of the matter is, we are all going to be faced with maybe larger class sizes, maybe not being able to buy the uniforms for the band or the cheerleaders, and so on and so forth. Cuando tenemos falta de dinero y 85% del dinero en la escuela está en personal, entonces es necesario que hay algo que no vamos a poder hacer para los niños. Y eso nos va a afectar a los niños.
So to answer your question, Angel Rivera from Mesquite ISD. So we just recently approved our compensation package, and some of the things we had to do because of this lack of funds was we prioritized positions. So for the first time in the history of our district, not everybody got the same raise or the same salary schedule for the following year. Now we're July to July budget, so we had to do that a little bit earlier. But that's an example of some of the priorities that we have to look at. Much like Dr. Elizalde discussed, we also looked at programs. Are we getting the return on investment on the programs? Because of that 85% that she spoke about going into salaries, you could not reduce people. You're already in a shortage. You have to honor your people that you have because there's no one out there to replace them. So recruitment strategies, retention strategies, differentiated pay increases. Of course, we were in a position, we decided to prioritize our teachers. But what does that do for everything else? We still need cafeteria workers. We still need paraprofessional staff that also needs to be supporting the instruction. We need bus drivers. We need that supporting staff that ultimately all contribute to the education of students because they contribute and have impact in our organization. So algunas de las decisiones que hemos tenido que hacer en el distrito de nosotros, tenemos que proveerle prioridad a las posiciones que tenemos en el distrito. La primera vez en la historia del distrito de Mesquite tuvimos que dar aumentos diferenciados. Algunos recibieron más que los demás y somos un distrito que tiene el presupuesto de julio a julio. So, tuvimos que hacer esas decisiones. Algunos de los distritos que están representados aquí, su presupuesto tiene que estar aprobado en agosto. So, estamos adelantados. So, hemos puesto razonamiento para los programas que vamos a mantener en nuestro distrito y todo cuesta dinero. Y entonces estamos haciendo más con menos, pero todo tiene su precio.
We all see the videos, very shockingly and very sadly, of students in actual physical altercations with the teachers. I know that has to be a small percentage, but what role do these tantrums, for lack of a better word, have on the frustration that educators have with their compensation at this point?
Well, I'm not going to speak for every other school district here. I know that we've seen some challenges post-COVID. And you can only imagine what happens when students stay home without the structure and the stability that schools provide. That's another empirical evidence about the importance that public schools play in Texas and in our nation. But we know that after COVID, and we tracked our discipline data, for example, and some of the examples that you mentioned occur. A social emotional learning of our kids. How do you regulate a student? The comeback, after, in some cases, in some of the school districts, been gone for 2 years, right? And so, and actually coming back to a system, I think this mic's not working, but it takes time to regulate and instill in them because consistency and having the proper personnel, we go back to personnel to address those needs. We had it mostly under control, but then they go away, and now they're coming back with everything that they faced outside. Some of our kids went home to unsupervised homes, right? They lack a structure and all the needs. So we're trying to regulate an unregulated sector that had been unregulated and out of structure for a long time.
I just wanted a quick follow-up, Dr. Rivera, the fact that the governor's not at your side at this gathering, this coalition. Since the governor's not here, this coalition, including Mesquite ISD, for the governor as to the...
Well, basically what we all collectively trying to do is just raise the importance of the basic allotment, increasing the basic allotment. We talked a little bit about tax compression, and she was very eloquent in answering that. But we're addressing on the maintenance and operations side. There's two funding sources for school districts, the INS, interest and savings, and the maintenance and operation. We're talking about maintenance and operation. The dollars that we use to operate our schools on a daily basis, which everyone has made a good point about, it goes into personnel. Why? Because it takes people to address the people needs of our students in order to create that workforce that's going to help us all in the long run. Sí. Él me preguntó que si el gobernador no está aquí para ayudar, y solo queremos enfatizar que el sistema escolar distritos escolares están basically fundados por dos, el interest and sinking y también el maintenance en operación, las operaciones que hacemos con las personas, ¿verdad? Entonces, ese dinero queremos en el M&O side, en el mantenimiento y operaciones del distrito, que nos den un aumento para poder resolver los problemas que tenemos diariamente en nuestro distrito escolar. Y algunos hablan del comportamiento de estudiantes. Necesitamos consejeros, necesitamos psicólogos para manejar todas esas necesidades. Y esa fue la pregunta.
Hi, I'm Catrice Pereira, and I have the pleasure of serving the Lancaster District. I don't have a speech or anything prepared, but I'm one of 25 superintendents across the nation that represent STEM education, and just recently went to Singapore with that group. I went there with a lot of pride about what we do here, and I arrived there to find out something as simple as investing, because everyone wants to look at this as a cost. It's not a cost, it's an investment. They were very clear about that in Singapore. They're spending $11,000 per child. How are we at $6,100? How? Now, this is my second year in Texas and my 10th year as a superintendent. And I've been a superintendent in other states. This is a national problem. It's not just Texas, but it's embarrassing to be in one of the largest states and we're at the bottom for funding our kids. That's not okay. That is not okay. And so I simply just wanted to make that comment because, again, it's been heavy on my heart since I left Singapore and coming back home, and to see the types of things that these kids have access to. Everyone wants to challenge us to meet the international outcomes. Invest here. Invest here in our kids. And the other piece I'll say is this: what message are we sending to our kids? They are the future. They hear about budget cuts. They hear about adjustments. What are we saying to them? That they're not worthy of us investing in them because we want to do something else? That's not okay. So you want to talk about the mental breakdown sometimes of kids? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm about to myself as a superintendent. I mean, let's just talk about the basic needs. Maslow's before Bloom's. If you know anything about education, that's a technique we utilize for instruction. But you can't have that if you don't have your basic needs met. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you for obliging me. I'm sorry.